and we will get started. So welcome everyone. I hope you're having a great new year. If we haven't connected yet, my name's Emily. I am your PAPREN fellow for this work group, which is the Parks and Green Space work group, and we are so happy to have you. Today, before we get into today's agenda, we have our work group co-chairs led by Dr. Rich Christiana, excuse me, Dr. Jeanette Gustat and Dr. Sandy Slater. You'll see them all here on the call leading the way. And today's meeting agenda, our introduction, then followed by a presentation by Balaji Ramesh from Ohio State University. He's here with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And he is going to present on his research around the benefits of outdoor recreation areas in ameliorating stress among parents during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to follow that up with a Q&A. And then going into planning for our next meetings, maybe talking about some different meeting times and days based on the results of our survey, upcoming meetings, and then at the end, if we have time, I'll open it up for any feedback or any announcements that anyone has. So hope that sounds good. Before we move on to the presentation, co-chairs, do you have anything that you'd like to announce at the beginning before we head right in? No, we're good. I see shaking heads. Okay. All right. With that, I will introduce Balaji Ramesh, pursuing a Ph.D. in epidemiology at the Ohio State University. He holds a bachelor's degree in Geo-Informatica and a master's degree in geography, and he will be presenting on his research today. So with that, Balaji, you can kick it off. And if you have any slides, I gave you access, so you should be able to share. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Emily. Let me share my screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yep, it looks great.
Well, yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm sure to just present the recent work that we did. And this was presented in the American Public Health Association, and I'm using the same slides. I have not updated the work yet. I was on a small break. And this study is this is not one of my main studies. My PhD is on a different line, but I typically work on environmental exposures and how environmental changes affects human health. So in this study, we are looking at the benefits of outdoor recreational centers in reducing stress among parents during the pandemic. And the PA of this project is Dr. Bridget from the College of Social Work in Ohio State University. And I would like to thank my co-workers and also Dr. Gia, who helped on this project. So just to give a overall intro, so my work group and my team is more focused on parenting, as they are situated in the College of Social Work. And this study was a bigger part of a Central Ohio family life study of analyzing parenting habits, behaviors, and also how to reduce their stress. So the initial phase of this study, which had like almost 4 waves, started during the pandemic. So we noticed that parents, more than the normal people, parents face more stress during the COVID. And some of the reasons for this is obviously like they had to take care of their kids with the lockdown, the social anxiety that was going around, and also managing the social anxiety of their kids, managing their schedules. They have been study which shows many parents have dropped their work or taken different work schedules to manage things around their kids' schedule. So typically we notice that parents are more stressed. And one of our team members, Dr. Jennifer Wolf, she did a study where she showed that this parenting stress was positively related to the odds of punitive parenting. So punitive parenting is using a little bit behaviors like beating the kid or things like that in parenting habits. So we started this study to see how we can reduce if these open recreational areas and spending outdoors can reduce stress among parents. One of the reasons is they were also closure of fitness centers and personal care facilities during this period, because in Ohio the lockdown started in early March 15th around, and all the personal care facilities and recreational centers were shut down. And we know that the fitness centers do help some people to regulate their mental health. So to give a overall gist of the literature that lies there, which says about outdoor green spaces as well as recreational spaces and how they are linked to mental health. Some of the ways through which they help in reducing stress is obviously the calming effect of the vegetation and nature spending outdoors, and also the concept of social belonging as you interact with people, and also you meet new people or greet new people as you spend more time in nature reserves or going on a hike or things like that. And normally in these areas, people tend to walk, and that implies a mild to moderate physical activity, which typically leads to a better mental health. And also there is this anthropological view that the through natural selection, we have not completely adapted to live indoors to a sedentary lifestyle, which has impacts in different, not just in mental health and also in physical health. That's why sometimes we have to get out to catch a breath. So these are some of the mechanisms through which green spaces and outdoor recreational areas are helping to ameliorate mental health. Yeah, and before going to, I'm coughing a lot. I'm so sorry. So our main hypothesis was to see how outdoor recreational areas could have played a role in reducing stress among parents. So we did separate our hypothesis into two parts. So initially, just looking parents who spend time outside and who did not spend time outside in these areas, and comparing these two sets of people and seeing how the stress they reported is different from each other. And secondly, as we had a longitudinal data, which I'll speak about, we were interested in seeing if someone spent some time right now during the day going for a jog or something, did we see them reporting reduced stress levels in the subsequent days or in the subsequent periods. So talking about the study design, as I already mentioned, this is a sub-study of a bigger study called the Central Ohio Family Life Study. So for this study, we recruited parents who have kids between the ages of 2 to 12. And then we followed them up for continuously 14 days. When I mean followed up, we made them to install an app which monitors their location. And also every day they would receive 3 survey pings. So they complete a morning survey, afternoon survey, and an evening survey. And in these surveys takes typically 1 to 2 minutes for them. So typically they report on a 10 scale, how would they rate their stress since their last survey. And this was for 14 days. This was the first wave of the 4 waves. So this was between April 14th, initially immediately after the lockdown, to May 27th. It's exactly not 14 days because different parents enrolled at different times, but each parent was followed up for 14 days. One of the ways the app we used is called Metric Wire, and one of the ways we ensured that we have the location data is by providing them incentives based on their location data itself. So if a person keeps the location on for 14 days, they get $14 more. So each day is $1 if they keep it on. So the study was approved by our OSU IRB office. Yeah, and then the study was situated in Central Ohio, which was typically Columbus. So Columbus covers around like 4 counties, which is the central county is Franklin. So we got parents that are in Columbus and also around Columbus in the Central Ohio region. So to give a overall view of the participants distribution or the parents distribution, majority of them were non-Hispanic whites, which is a big caveat of the study. I would discuss about it later. and most of them were employed and were married or living with a partner. And looking at the tracking time we had, so which I have indicated here. So the median tracking time was 192 hours, which is typically a continuous of 8 days. That's pretty decent because we notice that most of the people tend to turn off their location during the night when they go to bed. So 8 days is a pretty good period out of 14 days, considering that they turned off their location in the nighttime. And then the number of above mean stress periods was typically 13. I'll talk about this a little bit later. On average, people used to give a stress level of 2 to 4. Like that was the mean among when we take all the participants and see what stress was on average reported. And then we also were interested if the parent was with the kid during the period between the surveys. So most of the times, like 90 to 100% of the times, they were with the kids. So that's about the data we collected, which is the outcome, typically the stress levels and the tracking time. And then for outdoor recreational areas, initially we have started by using just the data from the OpenStreetMaps. So we collected all the boundaries or areas that's designated for recreational and leisure purposes in outdoor settings, but not indoor settings. So this excludes any indoor pickleball courts or like basketball courts and things like that. And it was in and around Columbus. This includes parks, playgrounds, recreational grounds, nature reserves. And Columbus has a lot of metro parks. And if you can see in this, this is the Olentangy River. That's a bike trail that goes along. And that's a pretty active bike trail. And we noticed a lot of participants using two of these bike trails that goes adjacent to each other. And there are many metro parks and small parks around them. So we captured this data just from the OSM data. We didn't have a timestamp. So the timestamp on which this data was collected was typically in 2021. So not going into the nitty-gritty details of how we process the junk locations we got, but to give a gist of it, the one big algorithm that helped a lot is called the density-based scanning algorithm, which helps you to kind of minimize the noise and understand the continuous location tracking. So we took the raw locations, processed them. There was a lot of processing that was going on, such as removing their home locations, the noise around places, and the times they traveled in a car or we speeding through area and removing all those points. So if you see the frequency distribution, you can see like it ranges. Typically, the major part lies around like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And there were some points where they were like more than 120 minutes. And we individually checked all the clusters to make sure that there is not anything erroneous or someone was living somewhere, because initially we had like 6 hours of spending time, which was not possible. So the maximum was 120 minutes where a person went on a very big hike. So that's our exposure. And then I describe the outcome. So coming to the methodology, so we have, as I said, we had two different hypotheses we were testing. One was between the parents. So looking whether parents who spend time outside and who did not spend time in outdoor recreational areas, are they different? So for this, we use Poisson regression models to see if the stress, the number of stressful periods they indicated was different between who used ORAs and who did not use ORAs. So when I mean the mean stress level, we decided the mean by taking the particular period, because people tend to report higher stress levels in the morning than in the afternoon. So one mean for all the three periods wouldn't make sense. So for each participant, we took their stress mean for morning, afternoon, and evening. And then we compared it with the other records to indicate whether the stress was above the mean or below the mean. And in the second part, where we were really looking at whether the stress increased or reduced after using ORAs, we use something called ordered mixed effect regression model using cumulative linear mixed effects models. In this, typically, as we have a longitudinal data, so we followed everyone for 14 days, and they are doing 3 surveys every day. So that's morning, evening, and then morning, afternoon, and in the evening. So for this, what we did is we had to match them to make sure that we have enough controls to compare. So we use this model because it allows us to also control for between effects and also teasing out just the effect of using ORAs. So in this case, using ORAs is spending at least 20 minutes in outdoor recreational areas. The matching was done in a way that we matched a Wednesday afternoon slot to other afternoon slots. So if you had used a ORA on a Wednesday morning, you went on a jog and you indicate your stress level typically on the afternoon. So I have to compare this particular stress. I can't compare this to the other surveys where you give a stress level on the night times because it might be different. So we typically took other days, the same afternoon surveys before which you didn't have ORA use. So that's why we don't pick this particular slot because you had ORA use that day. So that's how we matched it. And then we tried to compare how the stress level varied. So that's all the analytical part. Let me just jump to the results. So the first part, comparing parents who used ORAs and did not, we see that parents who spent at least once a 20-minute slot in the entire 14 days period in ORAs were 8% less likely to report higher stress levels compared to parents who did not. So after controlling for other potential confounders such as marital status, sex, and whether they were with their kids, and also their race and employment, we also noticed that the stress level was 20% higher among parents who were divorced or separated. Secondly, this was the main result of this 8% less likely to report high stress level was just comparing whether you used the ORA at least once or not. So we were also interested in seeing what if a person used it multiple times. Do we have a difference in a person using like 3 times compared to a person who used once? So we did a kind of a continuous analysis of comparing between parents. And we saw that for parents with one more use of ORA for a 20-minute, we saw a reduction in stress of almost 2%, but this was not significant. So this was just comparing parents just at the parental level, but not within parents. So going to the next level, detailed level of comparing within the parents. So we see the odds of reporting higher stress levels decreased by almost 39% post a ORA visit compared with no visits after adjusting for the parent level effects as well as the between parent effects. So as you can see the model equation here also the ORA use is typically 20%. We started with a binary analysis of the exposure. And then we also went into a categorical analysis of seeing whether the odds ratio we are seeing decreased further if the ORA use time period increased. So we separated into 2 time slots, ORA use of 20 to 60 minutes, and then 60 to 150 minutes, and then less than 20 minutes. So we did see that for the effect was stronger when the ORA use was between 20 to 60 minutes. So the significance of the study is typically while the lockdown had a stressful phase for the parents, based on the data we have, and also this particular study, we saw that outdoor recreational areas were helpful in reducing their stress, which was self-reported by the parents. One of the positive things about this study is that I was a little bit keen on reducing bias in the exposure, and the study design really helped us because we don't have most of the studies in this field are self-reported outdoor use or the proximity of where you live to a park or a recreational area, which doesn't exactly help you understand, though you live near a park, do you use the park or not? So in this study, as we had the geo-tracking data, it really helped us to reduce any potential biases arise by such stuff. And the other significance of this study, even beyond the pandemic phase, is that it also informs us that when there is a stressful period, just not the pandemic, in a parental life, these spaces can help them to handle their stress or manage their stress. So now going to the limitations of the study, I haven't started working on this. Is the same slide. I think if Emily was there, I presented in the APHA. So we are still working on these parts. Though we have the geo-tracking data, there is some missing, which has to be acknowledged. So parents could have visited ORA during when their location was off by mistake, or they deliberately turned it off. So this might introduce misclassification. So if there was really an effect that we see, which is like a 34%, then this particular misclassification will bias reduce the effect. So we will be the result we presented would have been an overestimate than underestimate. So and also, as participants were recruited based on convenience sampling, and also initially in Columbus, majority of them were around Ohio State University. The sample population did not represent the population distribution in the study reason. That's why we saw a higher proportion of non-Hispanic educated white women. So the way we addressed this was the PA of our project started in the other ways, in the other waves of the study, to collect data specifically from minorities and other population that was really underrepresented in the initial waves. And then the other point that we are currently working on is that you can use a ORA, like you can go to a park and use it, but it also matters whether you feel secure there. So the neighborhood plays a big effect on how it can influence a stress post using the ORA. So we are still looking at other variables where we can control for those effects. And finally, there are two things. One is the weather patterns that are changing day to day, and that can, as it was April to May, was not very warm weather. Almost it was almost a little bit beginning of summer. So the weather conditions can kind of moderate, like kind of vary your decisions on whether you want to go to ORA and also how stressful you feel. Typically for a person like me, if it's cold, I'm like really stressed. So that can modify the association, which we have to control. And also an increase in COVID cases will typically influence their decision on should I go outside or not. And that can also affect their stress. So these are some limitations that we are currently addressing in the study. And the other thing is, like, though we controlled, so when you go to ORA with your kid, that itself is like managing a lot of things around your kid. But we really don't have the data whether when these parents went to the ORAs, whether they took their kid with them or they went alone. Though we have a survey question of was your kid with you in the last survey period, we really didn't have a question of like, was your kid with you when you access the ORA? So that's a different thing that we are trying to understand through other ways. So that's pretty much. I would really like to thank the PA of my project, Dr. Bridget, and my advisor in the college, Dr. Ayaz. Yeah, I can
Thank you
take
so
any
much,
question.
Balaji.
Sure.
That was
Thank you.
wonderful. With that, we will open it up for questions, and I see two in the chat, so we can start there, and then feel free to unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat. So first question in the chat was, how were parents recruited for the parent study?
Yeah, it was typically convenient sampling. So we put flyers around. There are some community centers in Columbus. So we went to the community centers. We installed some stalls. We tried to reach out to them. And then during the initial stage of the pandemic, because we started the recruitment a little bit before itself, there had to be a baseline survey to be done. So it was easier. The wave 2 was hardest because it was completely locked down. And then and we had I think we had a Craigslist post and also a Facebook post on if you can participate in the study and also how much incentives they'll be provided. Does that answer the question?
Yes. And then the next question was, does the use of the ORA include bringing children or just parents using the ORA?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the bit I
Yeah,
explained in the
I put
end.
that question up
Mhm.
before you spoke that
Oh, okay.
you didn't know that, so.
Right.
So we typically control, the only thing we were able to do is like the survey we had, because where we asked them whether they were with their parent, like with their kids or not. So when, for example, if they went out in the morning and came in the completed their afternoon survey, the afternoon survey would indicate like, was your child with you since the last survey? But they could have just went out to the ORA for 20 minutes and then come home, and still they would indicate in the survey that yes, their kid were with them. So that doesn't completely tell us whether they were with their kid when they were in the ORs. Some of the ways we are trying to understand it is like, can we understand how fast we have the location tracking? So we are trying to understand like how fast they traveled in these ORs, whether they're jogging or like they were just walking around, whether that can tell us a little bit more information of whether they were with their kid or not.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
this study has not been published yet, so I would really appreciate if you guys can keep it inside this group. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And still my PA, Dr. Bridget, she's really helpful, and she's coming from a social work background. She really pins me down to the questions of like, what does this give to a parent on the road? Like, what does your research tell them actually? So we are still working more on understanding the policy implications and also trying to control for all other biases before we publish it.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much. This was really fascinating, and I think we'll just continue to learn more and more about the impact of the pandemic and maybe some things that we might be able to prescribe or do different next time. And it's definitely becoming apparent the importance of green space in parks. But as in terms of how, it's I think what we're still learning. So thank you so much, Balaji.
Yeah,
We
thank you
appreciate
so
you
much.
presenting.
Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful.
Very nice. You said this wasn't part of your main research?
So this is not a part of my PhD.
What's your PhD about? Can we ask?
Oh yeah, sure. My PhD is on so I come from a geography background and I'm interested in public health. So typically my PhD is about how you measure exposures and how that typically transforms or biases your health estimates or health risks. So I'm looking at air pollution and also flooding. So air pollution is typically measured on a very coarse grid. Like the big EPA monitors are very rarely separated. So now they have started using low cost monitors, but there are many differences between these two techniques. So I'm typically seeing like, okay, if you are saying this is a better technique, so are we underestimating the risks for so long? Or how much are we underestimating? So if we use this new monitors, does that really tell us that the effect was the risk of air pollution on pregnant women was far greater than what we estimated using a coarser exposure products? Yeah, that's typically I like working around like environmental changes and how it influences human behavior, and also how we can be more precise about measuring these exposures.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And I guess we do invite you to join this group if you're interested in physical activity and green space and parks. So please consider this your invitation to come back.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. So with that, we can keep it moving on to the next thing. So I will reshare my screen. So the next item up on our agenda is to kind of just discuss here with who's present in the meeting, which I realize is a little odd because those who can join the meeting, obviously the time is not an issue for them. But I guess I wanted to open it up to choosing a new meeting time for subsequent meetings. Here are the results of our little survey. And it does appear that Mondays still work best for most, Mondays and Fridays really. And the 12 p.m. Eastern time slot got the most participants who were available. But I wanted to see if maybe we wanted to open it up to 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I know that 12 p.m. works great for those on the East Coast, but it can be a little bit early for those with Western time zones. So any thoughts off the bat? And feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Robbie Layton. I'm just going to say this time works well for me, and a later time might be a problem on Mondays, for at least for the few months, just because I'm teaching a class in the afternoons. Yeah.
Okay.
I almost
Thank you,
want to say
Robbie.
we should try a new day just to see what happens. Because I know there are a lot of people on this listserv, but I don't know. Obviously, this time works for me, so you
Right.
know, hard to say.
I was thinking
Yeah.
about Fridays, but
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've got nearly as many people on Friday as we do on Monday, except for that 12 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. Do you have any sense of whether it's the same people who are selecting those Friday times as the Monday times, or do we get a whole different audience?
I can look into the numbers a little bit more and compare. This is just kind of the aggregate, everyone who responded, and based on
Mhm.
like total sum.
Yeah, right.
Do you know
Yeah.
what the like
Total N? What's
yeah
the
the
total N?
response rate was overall for this survey?
Good question. I can see right now.
Look, you had
So overall, we
19.
got 19 responses. Overall.
And how many people was it sent to?
And it was sent to our entire listserv. So I don't know how many.
I think our listserv is somewhere around 50 to 60 people that are in the Parks and Green Space work group. It might be even more than that. So it's a, what is that? That's like less than half of the people that are actually signed up for the group responded to the survey.
Yeah, if you're going with 60, it's about a 32% response
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah, so it's not it's not amazing, but anyhow, I just wanted to kind of bring it up, but if no one has any strong feelings on this call, I'm fine with keeping it as is. Just because it's not the data is not showing us otherwise, like that this time doesn't work for those who
Mhm.
responded. And then is everyone okay with that, at least on this call?
Yes.
Keeping it
Yes.
same moving forward? Okay. And then in March, the Active Living Conference, which I can put the registration link in the chat, is the 25th, 26th, and 27th. So that falls on the first Monday, the last Monday of March. So I was proposing moving the meeting up a week to March 18th. Is that, and I just wanted to mention that to the group here. Is that okay? And I can put out notifications. Okay.
That's fine with me.
Teresa said,
It works fine for me.
great.
Is there anyone on the call that it doesn't work for? I know that March tends to be when, you know, for those of us in academia, March is when people have spring break and may not be as available. So, if it doesn't work well for you, please let us know. Otherwise, we can move it so that everyone who's planning to attend active living can be there. Okay, looks like most people are saying that
Yeah.
it works for them.
Great. Okay. Thanks for letting us know, Christina. And the recording will be available. Please reach out to me if there is a huge conflict, that you really want to be a part of it. And yeah, we can see what we can do. I thought just it would be easiest just to move it the week ahead, especially because March is a long month. So
February's a long month this year too, isn't it? Leap year.
Yep.
Mhm.
it is, yes. And then so our next meeting will be February 26th. We'll keep it at the same time based on what I just heard. And our speaker is Dr. Deborah Cohen, and she is going to present to us around playground design and how playground design influences physical activity. And also some of her research looks in neighborhoods of different socioeconomic statuses. So that will be interesting to hear about next month. And then also
You can
just
make
a
sure to
note
have this
to,
announced. I'm sorry, Emily, make sure to have this announced at the main group or whatever. I guess it is, right? It's on the newsletter and all that.
yes, it
Every
should be.
So everyone can come. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And just a reminder to stay alert for meeting invites to our subgroup meetings. Where we're kind of heading in the direction of designing a project around the park in Luffy data and density bonuses. I know many of you on this call have been involved in those discussions. They're a separate meeting from our regular monthly meeting, so just keep an eye on the inbox.
Do we have a
I-
next meeting schedule or not yet?
We
Not
do not have
yet.
a next meeting
Okay.
scheduled.
I've been waiting to get the results from Jamie's undergrad research student. She's running some of the basic kind of descriptive statistics for us. And once we have those, I think then it would be a good time for us to schedule another meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so just keep us posted, Dr. Slater, when you do hear back from her.
Absolutely.
Great. And then we have a lot of time left for open mics and announcements. I will put the link to the Active Living Conference in the chat. But otherwise, feel free to unmute yourself. And let us know
Rich-
what's happening with you.
Rich, did you also want to talk about the possible other subgroup project we might have moving forward that's tied to some of our future speakers on the index?
Sure. Well, I guess I still don't know too much more about that. Emily, did we have we scheduled the I can't remember her name now. I want to say Deborah from ACSM, that working group.
Yes.
Are they doing the
She-
march, or are they doing?
Yes, she will be doing the March. I have to connect with her about the March 18th. Hopefully she's available on that day as well. I just wanted to confirm with this group before I spoke with her. But she will be going into more detail about the data set from Trust for Public Land and ACSM, which I think are interconnected. and kind of talk about the potential of us collaborating in her work.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that was kind of the idea, was that they were going to kind of use that presentation as introduction of what that working group, so it's a sub-working group of the American College of Sports Medicine organization that's working on these large data sets by the CDC, I think some data sets from maybe the Trust for Public Land, around urban parks and urban park usage. And the idea there was just to kind of be able to, with that presentation, kind of show the group here what they're doing and see if there's any potential collaboration opportunities through that presentation. So I'm thinking holding off until that March presentation to kind of gauge interest in the group around any potential project.
Thank you.
Looks like Terry's got her hand up.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, sorry,
I
Terry.
just want to announce for those of us, or those of you who are like me are in the Chicago area, the Nature, Culture, and Human Health Network is having an all-day summit on the 15th of March called Creating Welcoming Nature Spaces and Ideas Pathway, where ideas means inclusive, diverse, equitable, accessible, and safe. And it'll be a series of workshops, and our goal is to use the ideas and discussions that come from that to produce a toolkit to assist community planners and program and land managers with principles of designing safe and welcoming spaces. So if you're in the area, please join us.
Sharing. Sounds very interesting. Anyone else have anything before we end it and give you back some time today?
Since I don't think Jay Maddock has been on the past couple calls, I just wanted to kind of give a quick little plug for a new organization that he and a bunch of folks from, I think, the University of Washington, as well as some other folks who I think we're all pretty familiar with, started the Nature and Health Alliance. And I'll post that website in here, but they are looking for folks to kind of join the network and build the network out a little bit around building research and policy around nature and health and public health. I just want to make sure, just in case folks weren't aware
Very
of this.
cool.
I think a lot of you are already aware of this, but yeah.
Wonderful. I'm excited to go through their website. Anyone else? Well, thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I learned a lot from Balaji's research, and I'm sure he will stay connected with us and hopefully share the final published research when he has it. But other than that, thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday and the rest of your week.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Emily. Thank you, Balaji. That was very nice. Good luck on the publication.
Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice to see
Thank you.
everybody. Hi, guys. Oh, it's us. Look at that. Do we have anything to discuss?